I'm Evelyn Caro, 68 years old, and I used to believe betrayal came with screaming matches, slamming doors, or a knife in the back. I was wrong. Sometimes it comes with a warm smile, a slice of pie, and a voice that says, "I'm here for you." Jane lived next door. She was more than a neighbor. She was my safe place, the woman who sat on my porch with me when my world fell apart, who held my hand when my husband left after 28 years. She brought wine. She brought comfort. She said, "He's a fool for leaving you." And I believed her. I told her everything. I cried in her kitchen. I rebuilt my life one cup of coffee at a time, with her by my side, until the day I saw her name on his phone. Just Jane. Simple. Casual. Like she belonged there. And in that instant, the floor dropped from under me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there staring as the realization washed over me. The woman who picked up my broken pieces was the one who shattered me in silence. And this is the story of what I did next. It was 5 years ago, early spring. I remember because the dogwoods had just bloomed and the breeze still smelled like rain. I was out tending my garden, roses mostly, when a moving truck pulled up next door. Jane stepped out wearing wide sunglasses and a deep green scarf that danced in the wind. She was elegant in that easy way, like someone who didn't try, but always looked just right. She waved, smiled, and said, "You must be my new neighbor. I'm Jane." We clicked immediately. There was no awkwardness, no small talk. Within a week, she was sitting in my kitchen, asking questions about my recipes, laughing over stories of my grown-up kids, sipping my peppermint tea like we'd done it for years. She was divorced too. Too smart, too strong for him, she joked, though there was a sadness behind her eyes. We shared that pain. 2 women left behind, starting over on quiet streets lined with hydrangeas and hedges. I let her in. Not just into my home, but into my life. Sunday mornings became our ritual. Croissants, crossword puzzles, sometimes gossip. I hadn't laughed like that in years. She brought light into my days. And in return, I gave her something too. Trust. She knew where I kept the spare key. She'd water my plants when I traveled. She fed my cat when I got the flu. She even helped me repaint the guest room, just because. She called me Evie. No one else did, and I started to believe, truly, that even though my marriage had ended, I'd found something just as precious. A friend I could count on, a sister by choice. Looking back now, I can still hear her laugh echoing across the fence, and I can still feel the weight of what I didn't know then. Michael left on a Thursday. He packed his things in silence, folded his shirts like he wasn't ending a 28-year life, and walked out the door with a duffel bag and a whisper, "I'm sorry, Eve." That night I sat in the kitchen alone. Same table, same chairs, but nothing felt solid anymore. I poured myself a glass of wine, then another. And when I couldn't breathe from the crying, I called Jane. She was there in minutes. She didn't ask what happened. She just wrapped me in a blanket, poured the wine down the sink, and sat beside me on the floor like we were 2 teenagers hiding from the world. "He doesn't deserve your tears," she said, brushing my hair back like a sister would. "You are stronger than this." But I didn't feel strong. I felt discarded, like a coat he no longer wanted to wear. For weeks I didn't go out. I stopped gardening, I barely ate. Jane came over daily, bringing soup, stories, magazines. She made me laugh through the fog. And when I found an old letter Michael had written me on our 20th anniversary, still in the drawer, I broke. I held the paper like a wound. Jane took it gently, read the words in silence, and then without asking, walked out to the backyard, lit a match, and set the letter aflame. "That man doesn't get to live in your drawer anymore," she said. I thought she was my angel. Even when the pain dulled and I started putting myself back together, going to book clubs again, buying new sheets, wearing lipstick on Tuesdays, It was Jane who stood beside me, always with a smile, always ready with a story to fill the silence. I told her once, "I don't know how I would have survived this without you." And she just smiled and said, "That's what friends do." But even then, I remember, just for a moment, her eyes looked away. And I didn't know it yet, but I had said those words to the wrong person. It always starts with whispers, doesn't it? Not the ones people say, but the ones you feel deep in your bones. The ones that say, something's not right, even when nothing has gone wrong. Yet, the first time I felt it, we were at the farmer's market. I just passed the stand where Michael and I used to buy blueberries every July. I mentioned it without thinking, just a casual, "He loved these," and Jane went quiet. Not sad, not sympathetic, just quiet. Her smile faded like a light switch, and she moved on to the next stall. I chalked it up to a bad mood. The second time, I caught her looking at a text message and tucking her phone away too quickly. We were mid-conversation. It buzzed, lit up, and I saw the letter M at the top. Her thumb was fast, her face unreadable. She laughed and said it was just work. Jane didn't work. Then there were the little changes. She stopped mentioning Michael in that defiant, angry tone she used to. No more, "He's a coward," or "You deserve better." Instead, she said things like, "Maybe he just didn't know how to love you the way you needed." That one stuck to my ribs. She still came over, still brought soup and stories, but something in her eyes had shifted. Sometimes when I spoke of our marriage, my memories, my regrets, she looked away, like she couldn't bear to hear it, or like she already knew too much. And still, I silenced the alarm inside me, because I couldn't imagine Jane lying to me. She had held me while I cried. She had stood in my kitchen and watched my life collapse. Surely she wouldn't, but she did. And when the truth came, it didn't arrive with sirens or slaps. It came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon inside a bookstore when I reached for a novel and saw my past and her betrayal staring at me in one blinking name on a glowing screen. It was supposed to be a quiet day. I needed air, something simple, something normal. So I drove to Whitmore's Books downtown, my little sanctuary, where the aisles smell like paper and time. And that's where I saw him, Michael. He was standing in the history section, holding a book I once gifted him on our anniversary, The Art of War, ironically. I froze. He looked older, heavier around the eyes, but still Michael. We locked eyes. An awkward hello, a polite nod. I smiled, tight, brittle. We spoke briefly, surface level, the weather, the town. I told him I was doing well. I lied. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and instinctively I followed his gaze. A name lit up his screen. Jane Carter. My Jane. He saw me see it. He didn't speak, didn't defend, just fumbled to silence the phone and looked away like a child caught stealing. I didn't scream. I didn't slap him. I didn't cry. I just stood there, heartbeat in my throat, my world spinning in silence. Every moment between us, every hug she gave me, every word she whispered when I fell apart, flashed through my mind like a cruel joke. She was with him. The woman who wiped my tears had been speaking to the man who caused them, secretly, intimately. I left the bookstore without buying a thing. I drove home in silence. And when I walked into my kitchen, the same place Jane had once lit that letter on fire, I realized then something terrifying. She hadn't burned the past to protect me. She did it to bury the evidence. I didn't knock on her door. I didn't throw her betrayal in her face, scream accusations, or ask why. I didn't cry, not then. Because something inside me had shifted, snapped maybe, but not in anger, in clarity. The next morning I saw her across the fence, watering her roses. She waved like always, That same practiced smile. I waved back. But I didn't invite her over. That was the first shift. The second came days later when she texted, "Coffee?" I typed sure, then erased it. Then I put my phone away. And in the stillness of that moment I realized I didn't owe her a thing. Not an answer, not a fight, not a chance to lie better. I started watching. Jane came and went, always dressed just right, always perfectly curated, but now every movement felt rehearsed. I thought about the dinners she invited me to, the times she ran into Michael at the store. Those moments that once felt like coincidence now reeked of orchestration. I remembered the bottle of his cologne I once saw in her bathroom. "Oh, I bought it for a date," she'd said. I had believed her. I remembered her asking too many questions. "Do you ever miss him? Do you still have feelings?" Questions disguised as concern. I started putting it all together piece by piece. Her careful compassion, her timing, her presence in every step of my grief. Jane hadn't just comforted me through my pain. She had navigated it, positioned herself beside me not to help, but to inherit what was left. And so I made a decision. There would be no confrontation, no tears on her porch, no show, only silence. And in that silence, something far more powerful than revenge began to take shape. I've never been one for revenge. But justice, quiet, honest justice, that I understand. While Jane sipped wine on her porch and posted pictures of sunsets and sympathy quotes, I began building something she wouldn't see coming. Not rage, not destruction, something gentler, but unforgettable. I started with the messages. I still had screenshots, texts from Jane about Michael, ones she'd sent back when she pretended to hate him. "He's trash. Don't even think of taking him back." I organized them, dated them, lined them up like breadcrumbs. Then I reached out to Marcia, Michael's sister. We hadn't spoken in a while, but she always had a sharp nose for lies. I invited her for tea, showed her the messages. I didn't accuse. I just let her read. Her lips tightened. She said, "Jane? Seriously?" And I nodded once. That was all it took. Marcia spoke to others, family, friends. Slowly, word trickled out, not as gossip, but as truth. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. The weight of what I didn't say said enough. Next, I started reclaiming spaces Jane had taken. I joined a new book club, one she used to lead. I brought my own stories, my own laughter. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted from. I didn't mention Jane. I didn't need to. But the real seed, the one that would bloom the quietest, came from a simple photo. I found an old snapshot of Michael and me in front of our first home. Young, glowing, naive. I mailed it anonymously to Jane. No note, no return address, just the image, a memory, a warning. I imagined her opening it, seeing what I still held, even in silence. And somewhere between the tea with Marcia and that photo in her mailbox, Jane's perfect little world began to wobble. Nothing exploded, it just shifted. And she felt it. It was a Thursday morning when she knocked. I was slicing pears for a tart, the kitchen filled with cinnamon and quiet. The knock was light. Too light for a neighbor, too careful for a friend. I opened the door just a few inches. Jane stood there holding a pie. Cherry, her specialty. Her eyes were tired, her smile uncertain. "I thought we could talk," she said, voice soft, rehearsed. Like old times. I didn't take the pie. I didn't step aside. Instead, I looked her in the eye and said calmly, "You should speak to Marcia." The smile dropped, just like that. She blinked. Her lips parted, then closed again. Her hands gripped the pie plate tighter. Her voice cracked as she said, "Evie, I never meant..." I closed the door, not with force, just enough. And in that sliver of a moment I saw it in her face. panic. Not rage, not guilt. Panic. The kind that comes when the mask slips and you realize someone has seen who you really are. That week, Michael stopped showing up. I didn't see his car parked in front of her place anymore. Her porch lights stayed off. Her Instagram went silent. The curated perfection began to fray at the edges. She called me once. I didn't answer. She sent a card. I tore it in half. Not out of hate, out of peace. Because there was nothing she could say now that would rewrite what she had done. Not just to me, but to the version of me who had trusted her with everything. And the irony, she hadn't been replaced. She had been erased, quietly, thoroughly. A week later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just my name. Evie, in her handwriting. The same loops I once saw on birthday cards and recipe notes taped to my fridge. I opened it at the kitchen counter, hands steady, heart still. Inside was a single page. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't plan it. I don't even know how it happened, but I miss you. I miss us. You were my only real friend. No explanation, no accountability, just guilt dressed in nostalgia. She missed us. I read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it in the drawer with all the other lies I'd outgrown. There was a time I might have cried, a time I might have let that note reopen wounds. But now it just felt small and domine. That afternoon I went for a walk. The air was crisp. My scarf danced in the wind the way hers used to. I saw Jane pulling into her driveway. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. She smiled, weakly, the way people do when they realize they've lost something they thought would wait forever. I didn't smile back. Not because I was cruel, but because some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. Every step I took down that sidewalk was a reminder. I had survived. She, on the other hand, would live with the knowledge that she was the architect of her own loneliness. And I was finally free. It's been nearly a year since the pie on my doorstep, the letter in my mailbox, the silence that followed. Jane still lives next door, but we don't speak. Her garden isn't as bright as it used to be. The porch lights don't glow at night. She walks less, smiles less. Sometimes I catch her watching me from behind the curtain. I let her. I've changed too, but in the ways that matter. I go dancing on Thursdays now. Salsa. Can you imagine? Me, at 68, spinning around a polished wooden floor with strangers who make me laugh like I'm 20 again. I host Sunday brunch with new friends. Women who've known betrayal, who carry their stories like medals, not scars. We toast with coffee and talk about everything: books, grandchildren, grief, hope. I painted my bedroom a new color, soft jade. The old shade reminded me of Michael's shirts. That color no longer lives here. Most importantly, I sleep in peace. Not because I won, this wasn't a game, but because I chose not to let her betrayal define me. She took what she thought I valued most, but what she never understood was that the thing I loved most wasn't Michael. It was my ability to trust, to give, to believe in good. She damaged that, but she didn't destroy it. Now when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who rose, not in fire, but in silence. Not in vengeance, but in truth. I'm Evelyn Caro, and I learned that the deepest betrayals don't come with knives. They come with hugs, with shared tea, with someone who whispers, "I'm here," while stealing your peace. Jane didn't just betray me. She broke the version of me who trusted too quickly, forgave too easily, and believed every smile was real. But here's the twist she never saw coming. I didn't just survive her. I outgrew her. I built a life so full, so rich with real connection, that there's no space left for women like Jane. Women who confuse kindness with weakness, proximity with permission. She lives next door still, and every morning, when she sees me wave to someone new, when she hears laughter spill from my window, when my porch is filled with light and hers is quiet, That is the silence she lives in now. No war, no revenge, just truth. She will spend the rest of her days knowing that the woman she betrayed never needed her again, and that in the end was the most unforgettable goodbye I could ever give.